Hey guys, this is Balance from WCReplays.com, bringing you another audio commentary for the site. And we're going to be covering a specific topic in Night Elf Mirror, and that is aggressive Tier 2 win, I guess I will call it, where you follow up a Tier 2 hit with a quick win involving either Ancients of War or Talons, but in general, ending the match before Bears or any of the Tier 3 stuff is really even a factor. So we're going to be covering especially this early game play when both players go Demon Hunter. I should say that as well, because playing against Huntresses is something that I've talked about before. And playing as Huntresses is something that I'll probably cover at another future audio commentary, but we're going to assume the standard mirror, which is Demon Hunter Archers against Demon Hunter Archers. So this is going to be the topic, and we're going to open up with playing Demon Hunter Archers against an opponent who also goes heavily Demon Hunter Archers and follows them up with Talon, and talk about some concepts in this strategy that are specific to Twisted Meadows. This first game is going to be MYM Moon versus Noah or NOA.shy game from BlizzCon, and this is I believe the second game of their series. Maybe it's the first game of their series. Nah, it's alright. You guys have the replay. So we're going to be watching this from MYM Moon's perspective. Elapsed time 15 seconds, 1x speed, Fog of War off. Let's go ahead and get this started. Unpausing in 3, 2, 1, go. So, one thing I want to clarify before we get underway here is some people have mentioned with my previous commentaries that the strategies, they asked me, why do I prefer, Beastmaster versus Undead, or why do I prefer Dark Ranger versus Human, or anything like that. They asked me, why do I think this is the best strategy? And I just want to make it very clear that I don't necessarily think that the replays that I cover are demonstrating the best strategy. I think that there are a lot of ways to play any matchup in this game, and anybody who tells you otherwise is either just jaded or doesn't have a creative enough mind. There are lots of ways to play it. I just like to cover the ones in my replays that I feel are popular and will be pertinent to those of you who prefer these kinds of styles. So I like to take a style that I feel like is played, and then I like to talk about how to play that style well. And so people who enjoy playing that style can take something from it, or people who are looking for any style to play can try this particular style out and see how they like it. But I'm by no means saying that it is the way to play. I'm just saying this is a way to play, and if you want to play this way, here's how you might do it. So that's just my little caveat as we get underway here. You'll notice both these players going for a quick Ancient of War creeping. You'll notice on the southern side of the map, Shy has gone straight for the Mercenary camp as opposed to his Null Overseer and Null Warden's camps, his Yellow Null camp. This is often a good choice. It's a little bit risky, as if you creep a Mercenary camp, you have to be aware that it's then going to be available to both players, and your opponent can potentially use it against you too. But you do get a better item, and it's not a whole lot slower than doing the Nulls. So it's certainly not a bad idea, and especially if your opponent happens to go Huntresses, you then have access to a lot of helpful mercenaries. You just have to make sure to then control the Mercenary camp after you creep it. But in any case, you can watch the replay more closely for the orders on how these players set up their Ancients of War and get the Wisps out there to repair them. And make sure that you do have those Wisps on hand to repair, as Ancient of War creeping, while, as I've mentioned many times before, is very beneficial, it can also be very dangerous, and you can put yourself at a severe disadvantage if your opponent manages to kill that Ancient. Always want to make sure you cover all your bases. So both players have begun their Ancient of War creeping, and you will notice that Moon does not stop to get level 2. Instead, he goes directly to Shy's base. Now, I think this is a really interesting choice, and something that I don't see a lot from amateur players in Night Elf Mirror, and something that I think we can all learn a little something from. Is that if you are very quick creeping your first camp, and you have reason to believe that your opponent is somewhere other than in his base, which Moon checked there with that Scout Wisp, you can potentially do a pretty good amount of damage. You know that your opponent has started his tech, and you know that he's not going to be blocking his Wisps, because nobody ever does that in Night Elf Mirror. So he's going to have a lot of available Wisps for you to kill. And in this particular case, Moon has run into Shy's base and found something even better. He found a lone archer and put a lot of pressure on that lone archer, which forced Shy to use all of his moon juice, and which is always a good idea. If you you should sort of always be doing math at this point in the game when you play Night Elf Mirror, not necessarily just calculating which army has taken the most damage, but also who's used the most of their moon juice, because you should sort of just add how much remaining moon juice you have left over to sort of how much health you have in general. And in one big calculation, if you take all your total army's health plus all your current moon juice and compare it to your opponents, you can get a pretty good idea of who's currently out on top. And you'll notice that Moon there got a lot of free hits in, and free hits is what makes you come out on top. And that was all because he chose to run straight to Shy's base when he knew that Shy was somewhere else. And now, again, because of that Troll Berserker on the left-hand side of the map, he knows that Shy is somewhere else. And so he's going to run straight back into Shy's base. And so again, just using the principle of kind of keep track of your opponent, and if your opponent is outside of his base, running straight for the base, because in Night Elf Mirror, again, these wisps are very unprotected. And we haven't actually seen Moon going for the wisps, but because if there is an archer sitting around, chances are that's an even better play for you. Because a lot of time, if you focus your opponent's wisps, he will cycle them or just dispel them. But if you focus an archer, he'll end up using moon juice, which is actually pretty good. And plus, that's one less unit that you have to deal with if you do manage to kill it. So you focus the archers first, or at least that's what Moon did here, and there's a good reason to do it. And now that the archer's out of play, he's now taking a crack at all these wisps. Killing workers is obviously always a good idea, and it's especially good while your opponent's teching. Now Shy's just finished his tech, but any wisps that you do kill as a result of this strategy will only help you, and will make it very, very difficult if your opponent chooses to go bears. So when you're playing aggressive like this, a lot of time there isn't a whole lot of reason for you to go bears yourself, especially if it's going well at all. Basically, the idea is when you don't go bears, you save yourself a whole lot of resources. You never have to make a hunter's haul. You never have to tech to tier 3. You never have to. You probably don't have to buy 2 staffs. You don't have to buy an orb of venom. You don't have to research. You don't have to make lures. You don't have to research the bear upgrade. You don't have to make the bears themselves, which are also pretty expensive units. So you're saving yourself a whole lot of resources. By the way, as I talk, you can watch this just big micro fight in the middle. You'll notice both players using hide very effectively, given the fact that neither player has dust. So you can examine this micro on your own time while I continue to talk about some general strategy things. So back to what I was saying a moment ago. Not going bears saves you a lot of resources and enables you to concentrate your resources on a quick offensive push. And if you have any reason to believe that the push will be successful, a lot of times it's a good idea to go with it. Especially if you have a Nagasecond, as a Naga is very strong immediately at tier 2 and a very offensive hero. Goes well with that offensive tier 2 push. And if for any reason your opponent manages to get back into the game, or you're unable to finish it off, a lot of times you can just pull back, expand, and win late game with Talons, which is slightly more difficult to do, but still viable. It's just the basic idea is that if you establish an advantage early game by playing aggressively, then you can still go bears if you want to, but you don't have to, and a lot of times you can win without going bears. So you'll notice Moon continues to make good use of his moon juice here, and moon juice becomes all the more important in situations where neither player has rejuvenation. If you look at Shy's base right now, Shy is now currently out of moon juice. And so one of the big things that you should always keep in mind when you're playing this this game where neither player has rejuvenation is again, like I mentioned earlier, trying to drain your opponent's moon juice, because eventually when he runs out of moon juice and you have full health units, that's probably when you're going to win the game. So that's just a little bit about little bit of general talk about why this particular strategy works. But back to just sort of the matter at hand, the general idea here is Moon, played a very aggressive game early, was able to drain some Moon juice, kill some Wisps without losing a whole lot, came out on top, and so now he can follow it up with just aggressive